Hey y'all, good to see ya. Welcome to my first time feeling comfortable enough to film a sit down and talk with you video in like over 2 years. So let me reintroduce myself. I'm Isaiah. I'm 20, almost 21 years old. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a Libra, and about 9 months ago, I stopped taking testosterone. Whoa, hold on a second, go back. Did you just say you're a Libra? Libra Sun, Sagittarius Moon, and Scorpio Rising to really expose myself, but somehow, despite my overwhelming indecisiveness as a Libra, I made the decision in December of last year to stop taking testosterone, or T, after over 3 years of sticking a needle in my butt every week. Over 4 years ago now, I started this channel to track my changes as I began my journey on T as a masculine-aligned transgender person, and also to keep people who hadn't seen me in a while informed on my transition so that they wouldn't be overwhelmed by my shockingly fast voice drop.
Hey, I'm Isaiah, and I am 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks on testosterone.
I had spent years leading up to the start of my medical transition being so full of excitement over the changes that I knew T would bring. I remember in like September of 2016, when I found out I would be able to start T, I was full-blown sobbing on this little like grassy knoll at my high school. TBT, my like overly bleached dead hair of the time.
Got my testosterone shot tomorrow. And started T, like if my endocrinologist is available, like started T tomorrow.
There were a lot of changes I expected, like the body hair, the voice drop, the end of my unnecessarily painful periods. One thing that I didn't really expect though was the almost second whole social transition that I went through once people started reading me as a cisgender man, particularly given that I didn't pass very frequently before I started testosterone. It was kind of jarring to suddenly be referred to with the correct pronouns by cashiers at the grocery store or strangers that called me he in passing. At the time, it was definitely a huge source of gender euphoria, which is basically the feeling of joy inspired by your gender identity. The changes started to become much less incremental after a year or two on T. I really enjoyed the masculine presentation and reading that I was able to express, but I also felt a bit restrained in the aspects of traditional femininity that I felt I could present to the world. I had joined a fraternity, which I'm no longer in, and despite being surrounded by people that I knew would absolutely support me no matter how I chose to express myself, I just had this mental block between what I considered to be my form of masculinity and the types of expression that really inspired joy in me. This is, of course, not to say that there are any correct ways to present yourself or express yourself as a transmasculine person. I just didn't really feel like those options were super open to me. Back then, I got really into drag, an art form I still love and am completely inspired by all the time, but particularly because it gave me an avenue to express those parts of myself that I didn't really feel comfortable yet expressing in my day-to-day life. About a year and a half ago, I was scrolling on YouTube and I came across this channel called Best Dressed, and those walls that I'd unnecessarily built inside my brain started to break down a little bit. I saw this style on her channel that I just like immediately connected to and fell in love with and was just like super inspired by it. And it was a part of myself that I realized I'd been ignoring for a really long time. For the second time in my life, I chose to embark on a huge gender journey, and it took a lot of introspection about what masculinity means to me and how I like really relate to the concept. Throughout my transition, I'd always identified as demi-boy, which is partially male and partially non-binary. My connection with feeling that masculinity was really strong and a really big part of who I was. After a long couple months of thinking and talking with some of my amazing non-binary friends and thinking even some more, I realized that I didn't really have that same connection to masculinity that I used to. I started using only they, them pronouns first just with my friends and then generally in my life, and I decided that the label non-binary was just much more fitting for who I am now and how I relate to my gender. There is no right way to be trans and absolutely no correct or like set way to be non-binary. For me, medical transition via testosterone and top surgery were exactly what I wanted to pursue, and I celebrate that decision and am so grateful that I had access to those means of transition. Okay, cool. So you installed your gender 2.0 or 3.0, 4.0, whatever. But you still haven't explained why you stopped tea. I bet it was the booty needles. Yeah, I mean, like, a little bit. Doing the shot every week was definitely something that was really tough for me to remember, and I definitely skipped a few shots here or there by accident, which I do not recommend, and if you have done that, I absolutely recommend talking to your doctor about it. But on top of the mishigas of doing my shot every week, I realized that I was happy with where I was physically in terms of dysphoria and medical transition timeline. The reason that I stopped, or at least am taking an extended break from testosterone, was because of that. I'm happy with where I am right now. I feel like my relationship with my body in terms of dysphoria is at a really good place. I also realized that being misgendered in public with he, him, and traditionally masculine pronouns felt bad. Like, not as bad as she, her, and traditionally feminine pronouns, but the fact that people were looking at me and perceiving a gender that isn't there was really difficult and tough for me, and was probably also a contributing factor in me deciding to stop taking testosterone. So you stopped tea, but like, what happened? Did your facial hair fall out? No, that did not happen. Some of the changes on tea are permanent, like the hair I've grown and the pitch of my voice. Those things would not change back, nor would I want them to. Also, the hair that I've lost on my hairline will sadly never come back. F in the chat. That said, there are a lot of things that have changed that I didn't even like realize were changing until some of y'all asked me about it on social media. So here is a little guide of some of the things that have changed. So first I'm gonna start with a big change that there were a lot of questions about: menstruation. So if you don't want to hear some period talk, please skip to this timestamp. So yes, I have had my period again for quite a few months now, and it's something that I'm still getting used to because I didn't have it for like 3 years. Luckily it's not something that causes me too much dysphoria, but it does cause me extreme discomfort. I get terrible cramps and get violently ill every time I get my period. Because of that, and also just like not wanting to deal with my period in general, I've been considering getting an IUD. There's no guarantee that they'll end my period, but generally they can reduce bleeding and reduce some of the pain that I experience from cramping. So if I do decide to get an IUD, I'll be sure to fill y'all in on the experience and all that jazz. One big change that I did want from stopping tea is that my waist is now just like a little bit more indented and defined, I guess. The fat redistribution hasn't been like super massive or noticeable, but I guess I wanted like some curve back, knowing, having had top surgery, that I wouldn't gain any weight on my chest. That said, even though I had double incision top surgery like 3 years ago, and I don't have any breast tissue left, that chest region has been quite tender for quite a few months now. I regularly check for lumps and bumps and all that, but I just have like a general tenderness that doesn't really seem to like vary with my menstrual cycle or anything like that. A lot of the other changes I've experienced, I'm not totally sure are due from stopping tea or mental health challenges or quarantine, or just like a combination of all the above. For example, I definitely have less energy than I used to, and though this could be an effect of having less tea in my body. It could also be an effect of depression and reduced movement thanks to staying inside and missing my daily 3-mile treks around campus. Similarly, I eat way less and experience way less hunger, but this could also be due to depression and quarantine-induced lethargy. Also, I've found myself slightly more able to cry, which is like super exciting for me because I can count on my hands the number of times I was able to cry during the 3 years that I was on testosterone. It wasn't that I didn't want to cry, I just didn't feel like I had the physical capability of doing so. I forgot how like emotionally satisfying and necessary it is for me to cry sometimes to process frustration and depression and anxiety and just everything. So I don't know if that change is more mental health based or quarantined based, but I do think that stopping tea definitely helped me out, at least a little bit in that area. I might also have less acne, but I've also been taking way better care of my skin in quarantine, and I didn't experience that much acne when I was on tea, so who's to say? The final change that I want to address is sex drive. While it has definitely decreased since I stopped taking tea, I want to largely attribute that to my realization that I'm on the asexual spectrum, or gray ace to be exact. Gray ace, to me at least, means that I experience limited sexual attraction or desire with generally low intensity. I do sometimes still experience it, but nowhere near as frequently as I once thought I did, especially when I was on tea. I realized that a lot of the sex drive that I thought I was experiencing was instead a desire for the validation offered to me through sex and knowing that another person desired me. So because of that, it's kind of tough for me to honestly judge whether stopping tea had a large impact or not on my sex drive. So those are all of the changes that I'm at least like aware of, caused by or tangentially related to stopping testosterone. I want to reiterate again that going on testosterone or having a desire to go on testosterone has no relation to the validity of one's gender or anything like that. You don't have to want or not want to have any medical transition in order to qualify as trans or non-binary. I have done my best to answer all the questions that I saw before filming this, but if you have any more questions, feel free to comment them below and I'll try to answer them either in the comments or I can film another video if y'all want that. Thank you so much for coming with me on this journey. To those of you who have been here for like 4+ years, thank you so much. To those of you who are just joining for the first time today, thank you so much. Please feel free to subscribe. I can't promise when my next video will be, but I want to try harder to release more content, at least somewhat more frequently, so let me know what types of videos you'd be interested in seeing. Just let me know. So feel free to subscribe and like this video or whatever you want. I hope that you are all doing well and staying safe and healthy and wearing your freaking mask and staying inside if possible. And I hope you're doing as well as possible, and I'm sending y'all a lot of love. So have a great rest of your day and week, and thanks again so much for watching. Bye!